Tarantino created the perfect villain to start with. We need to understand what makes Hans Landa so complex. Whenever you see Hans Landa, he's likely smiling. And not just smiling, but greeting people, kissing women's hands, being as polite and gentlemanly as possible. His image is essential to him. Landa needs to project authority and respect. His rank and title place him high in the social hierarchy, so at every moment, even if he's about to execute dozens of people, he maintains his posture in friendly gestures, even asking if he was being insensitive in any way. The guy actually asks, a true lord. Well, Lord Voldemort, maybe. Because the good side of Hans Landa exists only to hide the real monster. As soon as he enters Lapodite's house, you can see the fear and despair on everyone's faces. You might think, sure, he's an SS colonel in the middle of a Nazi-occupied France. But it's more than that. There's something bigger behind it. Total dominance. Think about it. While we see the characters around him tense, confronted, feeling judged, on the verge of losing everything, we see Hans Landa completely at ease. This happens over and over in the film. If you pay close attention, you'll always see him doing something while he's not speaking, chewing loudly, pouring a drink, gesturing with his hands, laughing, unlike his opponents who remain completely still. Before even entering the farmer's house, for example, right after he shakes his hand, he holds the handshake for a long time, and when the Frenchman lets go, Landa grabs him by the arm and leads him to the house. Right there, he shows his power in a way that makes it seem like the house belongs to Hans himself.
Cinema scene in Inglourious Basterds and Hans interrogating. This guy knows how to play it cold, and not just that, we see that he enjoys the fear, the pain, and the suffering of everyone around him. The people are trapped and cornered. He isn't. He's free to torment, to scare, to do whatever he wants. For example, the grand opening of Inglourious Basterds with its steadily rising tension could have been a scene that lasted a minute if Hans Landa had wanted it to. Think about it. He already knew from the start that the missing family was hidden there. There was no need to stage that whole interrogation. But he wanted to know exactly where they were to shoot. My friend, he was accompanied by several armed SS soldiers. They could have just stormed in, sprayed bullets, and found them one way or another. There was no practical reason for all that. We see the same thing in the film's funniest scene, when the bastards are undercover at the cinema and start fumbling through Italian to try to fool Hans. For Landa, the violence isn't in the massacre that follows it, but in the psychological erosion that precedes it. That hunting philosophy is what defines him. He takes pride in his nickname, the Jew Hunter. To him, it's not a wartime title, it's a certificate of his artisanal mastery. A soldier fights for a country. A fanatic dies for an ideology. A hunter simply hunts. It's the absence of hatred that makes him so profoundly inhuman. Hatred is a passion, a connection, even if a perverse one. Landa doesn't have that connection. He's a scientist in his lab, an artist before his canvas. His prey isn't an enemy to be hated, but a problem to be solved. And the pleasure he feels is purely intellectual. It's the delight of a predator who admires the cunning of his prey because it makes the hunt more rewarding. He doesn't serve a cause. He serves his own nature. And his nature is to hunt.
Quentin Tarantino sets his first and most brilliant trap in Inglourious Basterds. He made us believe we were looking at the evil we already know, the fanaticism we learned to identify. But the true horror of Colonel Hans Landa isn't in the ideology he appears to serve. It's in the total and absolute absence of one. What's more frightening than a monster who fanatically believes in a wicked cause? A monster who believes in absolutely nothing, except his own superiority. Understand Hans Landa. Just analyze the scene that introduces him. It's not just an introduction, it's the complete thesis of his character. He arrives at the French farmer Père Lapodite's house not as a soldier kicking down the door, but as an unwanted guest, armed with a cordiality that's more threatening than any rifle. The hunt has already begun, but the weapons aren't bullets, they're words. He starts the conversation in French, the language of his prey. It's a calculated gesture to create a false sense of respect, to lower the opponent's guard. He sets the rules of the game in a linguistic territory that's comfortable for Monsieur le Padit. But then, when the crucial moment approaches, he executes his most brilliant and sadistic maneuver. He asks permission to switch to English. He knows the Jewish family hidden under the floorboards doesn't understand English. And with that switch, he psychologically expels the victims from the room. He creates a bubble of forced intimacy with the farmer, turning him from protector into accomplice. He's no longer talking to the man who's hiding Jews. He's talking to the man who's going to give them up. Every gesture is a piece of theater. He doesn't ask for water, but for a glass of milk, the symbol of purity, nourishment, innocence. By drinking it slowly, he savors the control he holds over life and death in that house. It's an act of symbolic desecration. He lights an absurdly large pipe, not for pleasure, but for spectacle, for drama. Landa is performing the role of a brilliant detective, a role he wrote and directs himself. The conversation was never an investigation. He already knew the answer. The pleasure wasn't in discovering the secret, but in watching the soul of a good man crack under the weight of his presence.
It's very comfortable for us to file Hans Landa away in the drawer of history as a Nazi monster, but that would be too simple. The disturbing truth is that Landa's spirit, that cold intelligence unmoored from ethics, is a timeless archetype. His uniform is historical, but his nature is eerily modern. Landa is the personification of radical pragmatism we see in positions of power. He's the brilliant CEO who restructures a company, destroying thousands of lives and families, and calls it resource optimization. He's the charismatic lawyer who uses his knowledge of the law to acquit someone guilty, not because he believes in their innocence, but for the thrill of the intellectual challenge. He's the political strategist who abandons his party and platform the moment the polls swing, because the only real cause is the preservation of power. He doesn't care about Germany or the party he works for. He only cares about his own recognition, a higher title, and the perks that come with the job. It's no coincidence that instead of arresting the bastards for terrorism, he prefers to strike a deal with their leader to end the war and get rid of the mustachioed guy in exchange for a luxurious life in the United States. Landa only plays to win. It doesn't matter if he betrays his country or his allies. In his game, there are only opponents. We fear the glassy-eyed fanatics, but maybe the more insidious danger in our world doesn't come from those who believe too much, but from those like Landa who believe in absolutely nothing.